Hello and welcome to a CommNet Product Management new product release for the NetWave Gen 3 line for 2019. Please be advised, this presentation and its recording are intended for internal use for CommNet employees and authorized manufacturers' representatives, so please do not share outside the organization. We will cover this update with three major categories: product discontinuations, revised product, and new product. And we will be officially cutting over to the new product on February 1st, although newer product may be shipping before that based on component inventory. The first topic is product discontinuations. The following product series will no longer be offered after February 1st. The NW1, the NW7, the NW9, and all series on the NW10. However, you'll see those asterisks beside some of those series models, and we'll explain what that means in just a second. This is really the main reason we are overhauling the NetWave product line. We were using two different radio cards from two different suppliers. The radio component of the discontinued products we just covered will no longer be used, so we will be moving forward with the NW10 card, and that will be used in all series of products. Do not fret, all NetWave units across all generations are compatible and interoperable, so we won't have any issues with upgrading systems or having any type of service or warranty issues. Here's where we blow your mind a little bit. Basically, the NW10 has been renamed the NW1. And we would prefer it if you call it the Gen 3 NW1 for now to avoid initial confusion. We'll showcase the overall product line, but fundamentally, the NW1 replaces the NW7 and the NW10 series and becomes our go-to model for many applications. Also, the Gen 3 NW1 gets a big bump in performance at no cost to the customer. You can see here that the NW10 becomes the NW1. So the NW1 will be using the NW card. It basically just rebranded. The NW9 will also be using the NW10 card, but we add on a secondary radio card that gives us the greater capability for data speed. So what happens in the end is the NW1 gets a performance boost in speed and gets the pass-through PoE at no additional cost. In addition, the NW1 and the NW11 series enclosures move to polycarbonate plastic from ABS plastic. So they're going to be thicker and more durable, and I think customers are going to like that. Okay, category 3 of the launch is new products. We have the NWK11/M that launched late last year, and that's meant to be our low-cost point-to-point kit. And we also have the highly anticipated NW13 kit, formerly what we call the NWX. We will go into detail on those products in just a minute. Here's the 20,000-foot view of the newly overhauled product line. You can see we still have 3 levels of data speed, but the costs have shifted in a very positive way to our customers. We have the low-cost NWK/11, and that's up to 90 megabits of true throughput in one direction. In the high throughput category, we have the NW1 series, the NW1DR, and the NW13 that I just mentioned there. And since that's based on the old NW10 radio, it's a 300 megabit radio, but you're getting upwards of about 180 to 190 megabits of data maximum in one direction. And in our backhaul category, we still have the NW9. It'll have the same basic specifications there as well. Nothing has changed in the accessories category, so we have the same options for external antenna and mounts. Okay, before we get into each model's detail, let's take a moment to talk about why we did it and if there is a significant change in the intended prospect or customer. Why did we build it? Well, really, we were having problems with the supplier of the original card, so we just decided to walk away from that. Overall, shifting towards one radio card gives us a reduction in costs. And now rebranding the 10 to the 1 and shifting the product line has added features at no cost to our customers. And on top of that, the enclosure manufacturer decided to improve the plastics in there based on some of our feedback. So when you package that all together, it really represented kind of a new overall product line, and we wanted to rebadge it, rebrand it, and kind of relaunch it. Now, who's it for? Now, although there are significant organizational changes to the line, it still fits all the same applications and types of customers we were previously serving. The addition of the NW13 will give integrators a one-box solution for up to 4 cameras and a radio and power supply at a single node, typically on a pole type scenario. So there'll be some good selling features of this, even though it's really a lot of the same capabilities. Okay, let's go through each product individually. Please pay close attention to this NWK11/M product because there are some important aspects that you need to understand about it so that you can position it properly within the product line and even possibly get a customer out of a jam. I'll cover a specific application note on that later on in the presentation, but let's dig into the details. The NWK11 series is meant to be our low-cost kit. We're going to have it in a US version and a Canadian version, and that's the IC for Industrial Canada. I'll explain more about that later on. This is going to be available in the kit only for now. Its range is up to about a half mile or 1 kilometer. Now, remember, all of our radios now use the former NW10 radio card, and that's a 300 megabit radio card. But the NWK11 ships with a 100 megabit passive injector, and that's what's limiting it to about 90 megabits max throughput in one direction as shipped. But it does have a gigabit port on there. This product is also passive PoE only. So you cannot plug this into a PoE switch for power, and you can't use a standard active PoE injector either. This ships with non-hardened wall wart injectors like you see in the picture there. That's something we've used for several years now. There will and is an option for a hardened passive injector, the NWPM 24 PPI. Pricing was set last year on this. It's $950 US for the whole kit, and it is available now. In the kit, you get both radios, both non-hardened wall wart injectors, and mounting brackets. The optional hardened passive injector is $100 at MSRP US, and you need 2 of those if you want to harden both ends. Okay, the new NW1 Gen 3 new and improved product. This is now a high throughput radio. You can see all the variations we have on this, and this is going to be our go-to radio for a lot of applications. We have the NW1 as an individual radio. We have the kit. We have both those options for Canada. Then we have the NW1/M, the smaller enclosure with the single port on it, and we'll have that available for the Canadian marketplace as well. This uses the NW10 radio card, so it's 300 megabits per second. Gives us a maximum of 180 to 190 megabits max throughput in one direction. And if you recall, that's twice the throughput of the previous NW1. This will have 1 gig port on it and 1 10100 port. It accepts active PoE to be powered by a switch or a normal PoE injector. And it has pass-through PoE on it from port 1 to port 2, which was not on the previous NW1. Pricing is the same on this. So US $775 for an individual radio or $1470 for the kit. So getting that additional throughput, the additional features, all for the same price. It is available now. However, the /M models are pending. We're doing a little more work in the factory to make sure that everything's proper and ready to go. In terms of variations of this, we will have the /IA 870 version, which has the 70-degree internal antenna, and that'll be for the /M models when they're available. However, we are not planning on doing the /EXA version for mounting external antennas to this. We're seeking some feedback. We have some other ways to do that, but if you're strongly opinionated about having that, please let us know. Next is the NW1DR, the high throughput dual radio. We'll have a version of that for Canada as well. Like all the other radios, it uses the same card, so we have the same capabilities. With this kit, you're going to have to add an external antenna. The one shown, the NW80A1, is the 17-degree antenna we've offered for several years now. This has one gig port on it and one 10100 port. It has active PoE and pass-through PoE as well. MSRP is US $1470, but you need to add the external antenna for this. This product is available and shipping now. Now, this is where you could use this product to connect that variable beam sector antenna that gets you up to 120 or 180 degree beam angle for the radio. Because remember, we're not doing the /EXA for the NW1. This, however, is already drilled out for external antennas, so you could do that. It would cost a little bit more, and you wouldn't end up using the second radio card in this, but it would work if you did want to use that sector antenna. Next is the NW9, the ultra high throughput radio. We'll have a version for Industrial Canada on this. And this gets a little interesting because we're still using the NW10 card, which is 300 megabits, but we're actually adding on a secondary radio card that gives it the 802.11 AC specification. And that makes it an 867 megabit radio, just like before, 500 megabits max throughput in one direction. It's got one gig port, one 10100, active PoE, pass-through PoE, and it's the same metal enclosure we've been offering with the NW9 from the beginning. MSRP is $1890 US, but this is delayed a little bit, probably 30 to 60 days or so, while we continue testing on that second radio card. Okay, the NW13. We formerly called this the NWX, but really the intention was to create a kit. And in this enclosure, IP66, we want to put the radio card, we want to put the switch, we want to put the power supply, and everything else you need, throw up on a pole. We'll have a version for the Canadian marketplace. It's going to include the NW10 radio card. It's all housed in an IP66 enclosure with 5 NPT glands. So that's National Pipe Threads. And that's a US standard, whereas all of our other enclosures for the radios actually use a metric standard. So this one, our US integrators will be able to connect their direct flex hose and other types of conduit directly up to these glands, whereas they couldn't before. So that might be a nice thing to push on that. The switch we're using is the CNFE5 SMS PoE switch, and we're using a 150 watt Meanwell power supply. All the mounting straps and hardware to go with it are included. You are going to have to add an external antenna for this if you are connecting it to wireless, maybe such as the NW80A1. Pricing is yet to be determined, and it should be available February 1st, we hope, or sometime not too soon after that. Here's the application for it. Probably the most common is going to be that pole kit, where you have up to 4 cameras on a pole, and you need to wirelessly transmit them. Everything's included. And if you've noticed something, that CNFE5 SMS PoE, only 4 of the 5 ports have PoE out. So those will be your 4 ports for your cameras. Port number 5 we're going to connect the radio to, but we're actually going to power the radio off that internal power supply that we're including in the kit. One interesting thing to deal with this on this product is that we have high voltage and low voltage in the same box. That may be a problem in some areas, some different electrical codes. But in general, what we're going to be doing is adding an emergency disconnect switch in there, which seems to satisfy the national electrical requirements, but may not solve necessarily all the local requirements. So if you have suggestions on how we can deal with this in a more broad way, like making a physical separation between high and low voltage, please let us know. We're looking for that input because this product isn't finished yet. Okay. I mentioned earlier that it's important to understand the NWK11 model so that you use it for only appropriate applications. This will prevent bad experiences for our customers, but still leave us a nice trick up our sleeves if they do have data speed problems. So the NWK11 is meant to be our low-cost model, give you a maximum of 90 megabits, but it uses a 30-degree internal antenna. So that's flooding a fair amount of RF into the air. It can cause a lot of back reflections. It can be interfered with other buildings and trees and things like that. So it's not great for noisy locations or locations with bad line of sight. We think you'll have very good success with this with point-to-point applications where you do have good line of sight, but it's not great for point-to-multipoint. And that's why we're only offering this in a kit initially. If we see a lot of success with this, we may do some additional testing and offer individual units to pair up maybe 2 or 3 to 1, but we'll have to see how that goes. Also recall, this does not ship with a hardened power supply. We're shipping it with the non-hardened wall warts. The hardened passive PoE injector available is 100 megabits. It's the NWPM 24 PPI. It uses wide-ranging AC input and delivers 24 volt DC up to the radio. So that's passive PoE. Can't be powered by a PoE switch or a regular PoE active injector, okay? But when you look at all this, remember, it uses the NW10 radio card. It's got a gigabit port on it. So if you have customers that are getting spotty data speeds, or they have too many cameras attached to it, if you source a gigabit 24 to 48 volt DC passive power injector, it basically turns it into an NW1 data speeds. Okay, so now you're going to get up to 180 megs in one direction. Best case, you have to deal with obstructions and reflections and things like that. So it could solve some problems on occasion. But we don't want to sell it that way all the time because it would cannibalize the sales of the NW1. Also, with all this reorganization, designing with the new product line is a little bit different. So let's just kind of walk through and highlight what's really different. If you're going to design for simple point-to-point applications, the NWK11/M is going to be your go-to product. If you're doing point-to-multipoint, now you're going to be using the NW1/M/IA870 as your AP or receiver, okay? But that limits you to a 70-degree beam angle. And if you need to go wider than that, remember, we're not offering the /EXA model that allows you to connect the sector antenna to a normal NW1. So the alternate option here is to use the dual radio, because that's already drilled out for an external antenna, and then you can use that sector antenna getting up to 180 or 120 degrees beam angle. But again, you're going to have to deal with a lot of interference and lines of sight and things like that. So really, we're going to push towards focusing people on designing with the first 2 bullet points. Limit yourself to 70 degrees. If you have other radios you need to get onto the system outside that 70 degrees, add in another point-to-point link or maybe even another 70-degree beam angle unit to collect multiple radios. It'll be a cleaner system, more chance of success. If you're going to be daisy chaining product or drop and repeating, use the NW1DR dual radio. We saw a lot of people using back-to-back kits, so using a kit attached to a kit, attached to a kit. And I think that was related to some problems with our original dual radio product. This is a much better product. We have confidence it'll work very well. And then again, for the 3rd or 4th time here, the NWK11 does not ship with hardened injectors. If you want a hardened either end, add the hardened passive injector. And then again, for use in Canada, use the IC models. That stands for Industrial Canada. And essentially what happened is that Industrial Canada is kind of like our FCC in the US. They said, no, you cannot use the 3 channels of bandwidth that's in the 5.2 range of the ISM spectrum. Whereas the FCC said, yes, you can use that. So it has to be a different product with different firmware that does not allow you to use those channels. So if you're selling into Canada, you're going to need to use the IC models. Let's talk about going to market. Not a lot to discuss here. Although most of the capabilities of the overall line are the same, the increase in bandwidth and additional features for the new version of the NW1 could be pretty well received in the marketplace. Okay? The product functions the same as previous models. We can highlight the increased performance of the NW1. Now all of our radios have that capability to be set to 5 megahertz or 10 megahertz radio bandwidth. And that really is helpful in noisy environments to get a good clean signal. Also, the NW13 will be new, at least a new name to people. It is using the new enclosure and has some new options, so that can be pushed by people out in the field. And again, all generations of NetWave radios are interoperable, so we're not going to have any legacy or upgrade issues. Let's move it on over to support. How are we going to support this rollout or this new product release? Data sheets are either done or in process. Those will be all on the website by February 1st. We're going to be including the taglines new and improved in Gen 3, so you can start to use that terminology. The NetWave brochure is done. It's at the printers. It'll arrive in February, and it'll certainly be available at the show in Vegas. We are going to create a website banner like you see today for newer products. That'll go up February 1st. We're going to do an e-blast, and we're going to do press releases. Also, we are interviewing and looking at digital marketing companies that are going to help with a lot of the digital media and Facebook, Instagram, Google AdWords promotions and things like that. So that's going to be going on in the background once we hire them. The price guide is updated and it'll be sent out prior to February 1st. Next is training support. This will be a big part of what happens kind of out in the field. From training perspective, we're treating this mostly as a critical reorganization with most of the same features, but important implications to product selection and designing. We're going to support that. We already have a new PowerPoint overview of the product line that can be used individually, or it can be inserted into the overall product overview. We're going to feature the NW13. We're going to review those important changes in product selection for various applications. We're even going to educate on passive PoE versus active PoE. A lot of people don't necessarily understand the differences, and those come into play obviously with our NWK11/M. The application note about designing with the 70-degree antenna, we're going to highlight that, the reasons why to limit yourself to narrower beam widths instead of the wider beam width sector antenna, and just in general, the proper use of the NWK11. We'll highlight the move from polycarbonate plastic to ABS plastic on the units and the 5 and 10 megahertz radio bandwidth capabilities. So all of that comes down into some deliverables here. The overview PowerPoint's done. That'll be in Dropbox. We are going to produce this same video that you're viewing now, but produce it for public consumption. Okay? We'll upload that onto our YouTube channel. But what we'll do to kind of promote that is we'll make a very quick promotional video about the same topic, probably less than a minute, and we'll email that out to everybody in our database, but then also give them the option to link up to this larger video, much like what you're watching today. We're also going to do some more how-to and application note style videos. The NWK11/M video, how should you set it up? Look how easy it is. Kind of replacing the video I did many years ago on our point-to-point kits. We're also going to do more how-to videos. So how do you pair the radios when they're not a kit? And then once they're paired, how do you optimize that signal? So look for those in the coming months. Okay, there you have it. So get ready for February 1. Any changes or updates on those products that are slightly delayed, we'll send updates on those through emails. If you have any questions on anything you've heard today, please feel free to reach out to myself or Moses, and we'd be happy to help you. So good luck and good hunting.